4 minutes until showtime. 3 minutes until showtime. 2 minutes until showtime. 1 minute until showtime. 'Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
'Twas the night before Christmas when all through the land Fox News warned its viewers of a dastardly plan. The liberals were launching their war on the season to get rid of Christmas and commit acts of treason, removing decorations out of their sight and telling you that Santa and Jesus ain't white. Environmentalists who'll come right after your soul. They hate all things Christmas, especially the coal. They'll sneak in your house all dressed in their flannel and instead give the bad kids some new solar panels. They'll take up all decorations that please us. They'll even go after tiny baby Jesus. Now all these Fox lies cause such a frustration. Who would save us all from this misinformation? When live from the net there came lots of chatter. Could it be old St. Nick, or perhaps someone fatter? Broadcasting from New Orleans down in Louisiana, it was none other than Liberal Dan, coming to save the holiday season. busting through their lies with facts, logic, and reason. But I cannot do it myself, he exclaimed, so he called other groups, each one by name, on Christians, on Muslims, on Wiccans, on Jews, on Hindus and Buddhists, and atheists too. Let us all spread the word and tell them indeed that there's no war on Christmas, just one on greed. So instead of joining this manufactured fight, listen to Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right. Welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. To join the conversation, it's area code 914-803-4131. That's 914-803-4131. Just leave your area code or what have you in the chat. Just let me know who you are that's calling in so we don't have any trollish type folks trying to sneak in something naughty. You can also leave your comments and questions in the chat, and I'll get to them as I can over at the YouTube chat. I'm not using the Blog Talk Radio chat, so if you're listening on Blog Talk Radio, you might want to pop on over to the YouTube one as well. It's more fun. And then if you're listening after the live broadcast, you can always leave your comments, questions, concerns, etc. over on the show thread at liberaldan.com, at facebook.com/liberaldan, at liberaldan radio on Twitter, or here on the YouTube thread as well. Aaron West, nice job, Dad. I'm not that old. Anyway, so the bottom half of the hour today, we're going to be talking to Devontae Lewis. Second time he will be on the show. The first time he was on the show, we were discussing the Democratic Party shenanigans during the open primaries in his race when he was running for public service commissioner here in the state of Louisiana. And he made the runoff against the incumbent, and he won that election in the runoff. So I invited him on the show. I said last week before the election, which was on Saturday, I said, when you win the election, I want you to come on the show. And he's like, well, I'll come on your show anytime. But I'm like, and then he won. And I was like, yeah, but I wanted to be confident that you were going to win. So I was confident that he was going to win, and he in fact won. So we will be having him to discuss several issues, how the race went, how he got apparently some big names, at least according to the conservatives, some big names supporting his candidacy, or at least opposing his opponent. He is a much more progressive person than the individual. The individual who was running, who was the incumbent, had the support of lots of the establishment in the Louisiana Democratic Party, including former Louisiana Senator Mary Landrieu and current Governor John Bel Edwards. And he also was facing a Democratic Party in Louisiana, which basically sucks. We're going to talk about that as well, because nobody shoots themselves better in the foot better than the Louisiana Democratic Party does. So we'll be talking about that at the bottom half of the hour. We also got to talk about some of the other things. We got Brittany Griner, who was freed from prison, and of course everyone is, all the conservatives are like, well, this is a stupid trade, this is a bad trade. Well, let me ask you something. Anybody who's a conservative who thinks it was a bad trade, if it was your relative who was being held by Russia, and the United States government had the opportunity to bring your relative home, wouldn't you want them to do it? And everyone's like, oh, well, he's the agent of death, or the merchant of death, or whatever they call him, because he was an international arms dealer and responsible for how many deaths. Well, I mean, some other arms dealer may very well have, filled that vacuum regardless. I don't know how easily it would be for him to get back in the game at this point if it's going to be an additional threat. But guess what? I'm sure that the United States intelligence agencies that would be responsible for apprehending him if he does anything wrong are going to be keeping a very close eye on him and making sure that he doesn't do any shenanigans again. And if he does, they'll snatch him right back up again. And then maybe they could use him to bring back another American home, just kind of lather, rinse, repeat type thing. But Brittany Griner, I mean, there was no reason that she should have been locked up. And, her family, her wife,
stood up for her and, was a great advocate for her. It's great to see a spouse being such a good advocate for their spouse. Very talented attorney. I believe she's an attorney. That's what I remember. And she was making very good arguments, very good, out there publicly supporting her wife. And of course, that makes the conservatives mad even more because, gasp, it's a lesbian couple. Oh no, how dare we help lesbians out? Hey, Kimchi in the chat, Jeff, Trucker John, Ken, Seha, thank you so much. So we've got Jolie, Aaron West, the Mod Squad. Andrea is here. Cool, thank you very much for joining, Andrea. Andrea, Ken, Jolie, and Aaron all joined me last night on my Twitch live stream. We chatted a little bit as I grinded out some levels in Fortnite. So thank you all again for joining us. I also it's fun just hanging out and chatting and just gaming, even if most of the people aren't gaming with me. So if you want more Liberal Dan, you can also join me on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8 p.m. over on Twitch, and we can just have a fun chat over there as well, and actually talk about some political stuff as well. So it was great. I appreciate all of y'all for whatever you listen to me. I do appreciate it. You could be listening to something else, but you listen to me, so that makes me happy. Shouts out to the other people who do support the show, by being a Liberal Dan Radio patron. Robert Reynolds, Wes, Bill P, Jolie, Aaron, your boy Chris, Cesar, and the first Liberal Dan Radio patron, Demonox, and of course Julie Swenson, the first Liberal Dan Radio producer. We are coming up on, I don't know, we're about half a year on some, and so t-shirts may be coming sometime next year for those people who have subscribed or who have been a Patreon for that long. We also have the folks who buy ciders and shoot me Venmo, which is also very nice as well, and I appreciate y'all for doing that too. But again, the best thing you could do is to subscribe to the show if you haven't subscribed already. I'm pretty sure most of the people in the chat currently have subscribed to the channel, but just share some videos. I have a couple that I want to make soon. Hopefully I'll be able to make them soon. They're just all lined up, ready to go. I just need to do them. I'm still kind of catching up on my sleep with my new dog. So, anyway, so let's go ahead and we'll tackle the Twitter thing first. Let's play this week's Hypocrite of the Week.
This week's Hypocrite of the Week is Elon Musk. Musk initially claimed that because he believed in freedom of speech that he wouldn't ban the sharing of information, even information that he claimed might put him at risk. Twitter then banned the Elon Jet account, which tracked the movement of Elon Musk's jet. Of course, the information on the account was already public information. But let's not confuse Elon. He's no longer the richest person in the world and is probably very sad about it. To see who next week's Hypocrite of the Week will be, tune in to Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right. Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central at Liberal Dan Radio on YouTube and blogtalkradio.com/LiberalDan.
And there we go. Elon proving himself more and more conservative and more hypocritical every day. And for a while, I think it was the Elon Jet account was banned, but the Bezos Jet account was not. But he's, I'm a free speech absolutist. And then he finds out, well, I own this site, and there are things that I don't like on this site so I'm going to take it down because I don't like it. And guess what? That's his freedom of speech. That is really freedom of speech. He owns the site. He has the ability to say whether or not certain activities can happen on his site or not. It's as simple as that. Now, whether or not he uses too much a heavy hand doing those sort of things and becomes too much of a super snowflake over people making fun of him or tracking his publicly available airplane movements, jet movements, etc., that's might drive people away and make it less of a successful business venture. But that's the one of the many things that conservatives don't understand about freedom of speech, is that if Elon is forced to host your speech, that's not freedom of speech, because that's violating his freedom of speech. Just like if somebody is on my show, somebody calls into my show and starts blathering on, spouting some anti-Semitic drivel, I have every right to yeet them off the program and not take their calls again. that's not a violation of their free speech rights. I don't have the responsibility, or there's nothing requiring me to do that. The rights that are held in the First Amendment are protecting you from government infringing on your free speech rights. But it's not private entities that have to be forced for you to allow you to say what you want to say. So it's crazy. Jeff Curry, I should join Twitter just to see how fast I can get banned. The only reason I haven't really pushed the issue more than I maybe would have liked to, although I do want to kind of post my Hypocrite of the Week to Twitter and tag Elon in it and see if he happens to notice it. I doubt he will, but just to see if he might kick me off or whatever, or ban me. But I really don't want to get banned off of Twitter because I'm trying to, again, get as much traction as much as possible, as quickly as possible to try and grow the brand, so to speak. So let's see. Kimchi, everyone understands this except maggots, poorly educated and informed. Well, Donald Trump did say he loved the poorly educated, and every time they speak, they prove why he loves them so, because they're so easy to manipulate. They're marks, as you might say in wrestling speak. Let's see. Say hi, smash some like for Liberal Dan. I've got the smooth late night radio voice, yes. Not quite as smooth as the smooth sounds of the Percy podcast. He says he might be doing a podcast soon. I will believe that when I see it, but we will be letting everyone know when he does the next episode. But you can go to the Percy podcast. I think I've linked to it on my shows, or you can support page at liberaldan.com to support these creator shows. I have links to Ken's podcast, Andrea's. I have posts, a link to Hal's, and a bunch of other people, TV2, Trucker John, etc. And if you have anybody else that you would like to, promote, or think that I should be giving shouts out to, I'd be more than happy to do so. Just let me know, and they will be on my Support This Creator. Let's see. Andrew asks, what is Trump's big announcement tomorrow? I really don't know. Some wild things came to me where Trump's going to be like, I have negotiated the release of all of the American hostages in Russia. And I don't know, maybe because he's Putin's little bitch and he could probably do that because Putin wants to see him get reelected because Putin likes Trump as president. My thing was thinking the polling came out showing that Donald Trump is not favored amongst a lot of the people who will be voting in the 2024 primary, that Ron DeSantis has done some gaining of ground and leads amongst a lot of people, at least, for that race. And a video that I'm planning on making, and I guess this is the short version of that video, is what would happen if Donald Trump decided that, even though he announced that he was running as a Republican in the paperwork that when he filed his candidacy, and when he announced that way back when, last month or whatever, Jeff, you beat me to it. Even though he announced that he was running as a Republican, I do believe that, that it's most likely, although who knows with him, that I'm most likely it could be that he is going to be planning on running as a independent instead of a Republican. And while generally speaking, you might think, a lot of people who are political pundits might say that if Donald Trump runs as an independent, then whoever the Democratic nominee is, whether it be Biden or somebody else, it would be a shoo-in and an electoral college landslide because Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis would then split all the conservative votes, making it easier for Joe Biden to win it outright and win more electoral college votes than before. And that's a possibility if he wasn't trying to manipulate the system. One of the reasons that the Electoral College is broken is that you have a situation where if nobody gets a majority of the Electoral College vote, so if the highest number is 269 or less, i.e. not 270, then then the House of Representatives picks the president. And what happens in one of those contingent elections is that each state has a vote. Not each person, but each state has a vote. So Wyoming's vote for who becomes president is the same as California's vote for who becomes president, which sucks. And then you try and the person with 26 states worth of votes becomes the next president, and the Senate picks the vice president. So here's the thing. And the Senate picks it just as a senator vote. So it's possible you could get a Republican president and a Democratic vice president that way. And this is all Trump would have to do. And I'll go into more detail about this on the video that I'm making. But all he would have to do is win just enough electoral college seats, just enough seats with the electoral college to make it in, and make sure that neither Biden or DeSantis gets the majority. And then he would just have to make sure that he has a majority of the red states supporting him, which means he would need a very small amount of people. I'll be doing the math as to how few representatives Donald Trump would have to support in order for him to win the presidency. He could win one electoral college vote. If it was like 269 to 268 to 1, making a contested election, Donald Trump, even though he came in third, would then be able to win the electoral college because he would have supported all of those Republicans in those easy seats that he supported in 2022. So people were saying, oh, Donald Trump supported all of these candidates that were going to win anyway because they were very safe red districts. Well, what happens is that all those people are MAGA folks. All those people are loyalists, loyal to Donald Trump. They're his loyalists. And if they then gather enough states worth of votes so that he gets a majority of the red states, and there's only 24 blue states at the moment, only 24 states where you have a majority of Democratic seats. So there would then be Biden in first, and then maybe Trump in second, and then the Republicans would then have to figure, well, all those other red states would be like, well, we can't outdo the loyalists. The loyalists aren't going to budge, so therefore we're going to have to either choose to go with Biden or go with Trump, and then it would go with Trump. So it's a huge gamble. It would be a huge gamble on his part, but it would be a way to completely manipulate the situation. And look, he'd have to do it smarter than past candidates. Ross Perot got like 30% of the vote one of the times that he ran, and he didn't get a single electoral college vote. He didn't earn a single electoral college vote, if I'm recalling correctly, because he ran nationwide instead of trying to force the contested election and then have a Congress that would back him. So that's the not so short version of what my video is intending to be. So let's see. Elizabeth, hello. I'm still sick. Following chat is hard, but love y'all. I'm sorry, Elizabeth. I hope you feel better. Let's see. Alorasia's here. Hi, Alorasia. Hi, Crimson. Thank you for joining. Let's scroll through the chats. Will he announce his running mate? MTG? I don't know if he would announce MTG. How old is MTG? Is MTG old enough? Let's see. How old is Marjorie Taylor Greene? She's 48 years old. Okay, I guess she is old enough. There you go. I thought she was younger than that. I guess hatred hasn't aged her too much. Whatever, she just looks like a Cabbage Patch Kid. But yeah, the wisdom, the Seha says, please let him go independent and split the Republican Party. Conventional wisdom would say that's what would happen, but these are not conventional times. I'm worried that those conventional thoughts would go out the window if he has enough smarmy people who are smart enough to figure out this is how we do it and win, and not this is how we do it and just split the Republican vote. So Demonox is here. Hello, Demonox. He's half awake, which means half asleep. But hey, glass half full, glass half empty, etc. Next Christmas wish is Mike Lindell for the head of the RNC and MTG for speaker. That would be amazing to see MTG as Speaker of the House. Just to see what a trash bin that would be. Trash dumpster fire that would be. Let's see. Let's see. Say no. If Trump chops independent, he will crash the Republican Party. And Trump is such a narcissist. I see Trump crashing there. I mean, it's possible that might happen. It's possible that he's such a narcissist that he would just destroy the Republican Party because they're rebelling against him, and he doesn't like that. That he might, try and make it crash and burn, and then rule over the ashes. Kind of like Littlefinger, except he has lots of little fingers. But it's still even if what I suggest in the video would be improbable, it's still a way that it's another reason why the electoral college system is broken and has to go away. Wes Webb, she's in good shape for an old broad. I guess you're talking about MTG. I mean, she cucks her husband, or I guess her soon-to-be ex-husband, so much that it's got to give her good exercise, right? Let's see. MTG has the right to bear arms. Lol. AFC showboated. Come on. Let's see. Trump's just fundraising and hoping that running will keep him out of court. That's also true. I'm sure Trump's fundraising is going to be, a lot of it is to milk his. I mean, he already bilked, Herschel Walker supporters out of money because he was trying to campaign and fundraise off of Herschel Walker, and none of the funds that he raised went to Herschel Walker. They went to him because, he's a narcissist. So, let's see. Electoral college filibuster and gerrymandering all need to go. Yes, I would love to have more of time to focus on my ideas for eliminating gerrymandering, simply because by getting rid of districts, because congressional districts aren't needed anymore. We have, used to be, you'd have a geographical area that one congressperson would represent, and they would, have to be able to get around, geographically speaking, and there you go. That's how you made these districts. But now you don't need these districts because you can just give the states the number of House seats that they have, and then just vote slates of electors, slates of people in. Not just electors, but slates of people. Say, okay, this Louisiana has 6 seats. Well, the Democrats can run run 6 candidates, and if they get a third of the vote, then they're going to get 2 seats. There you go. It'll be truly what the House of Representatives was meant to be, which is a representative of the people. So, let's see. Half hour till Benny's birthday show. Cool. I might finish in about a half hour-ish, depending on how long I go with Devontae Lewis. So, but before we get on, let's see. Hey there, on a call about tonight's storms. Going to be a bit late. That's fine. Just let me know, and I will answer when you call in. Perfect. There's storms tonight. There was a big tornado that went through Algiers. I live in Algiers, and the big tornado went through Algiers. I'm fine. We're fine. It didn't hit us, but there was a lot of damage. It killed at least one person. It did a lot of damage. The hospital where my mother-in-law is at lost power. She doesn't require any sort of life support or anything, which is good. So yeah, it was a little bit. We had our eyes on the news, just watching and make sure we didn't have to go run into our bathroom real quick, just to make sure that we stayed in our centralized room or whatever. Where is the front at? What is that, a typo? I don't know. Anyway, so the other thing I did want to talk about before Devontae Lewis comes on the show is the fact that we got nuclear fusion. And that's why I did the power, unlimited power, like from Emperor Palpatine in Star Wars. We have, the dream has been nuclear fusion. Now, just because they were able to achieve it, it doesn't mean it's going to be instantly available for everybody to use, and we can now eliminate fossil fuels. But It's a great step in the right direction, and if we were able to make this big enough, we could eliminate all other forms of power potentially, because the amount of power that exists in a cup of water with nuclear fusion is much more than like what tons of coal or pounds, at least pounds of coal, if not tons of coal. I don't know the exact numbers, etc. So, but here's the thing, and if you've watched the show For All Mankind on Apple TV, I don't want to spoil too much of it if you haven't. It's a good show. It's about women getting involved in the space race early because the Russians beat us to the moon, and then we get to other places in space that we hadn't gone to in our reality. But one of the things that they have in the show is that one of the rich people, one of the people who is an inventor or whatever, or maybe one of the countries, finds material on the moon that makes it easy to have nuclear fusion. So now we have fusion reactors, and you have fusion power. And you have people striking on the show as kind of a sub-story, because all of these people are like coal workers and oil field workers, etc., who are all upset because they're losing their jobs because you no longer have those industries anymore. And so I'm just wondering, how much would conservatives, Republicans, just fight tooth and nail against the implementation of nuclear fusion, simply because of the fact that they are just ultimately beholden to big oil, to coal, to the fossil fuel industry, and they will never want to let it go, even if it's to the benefit of everybody. And now the idea that these people would have to be out of jobs is ridiculous. You train them to work in other industries at that point. And maybe with nuclear fusion, it opens the door for many other industries to take place. If you're having that innovation, it's going to come with other innovation. If you're working on an oil field, maybe if we have nuclear fusion, the space race can become better, and now you can work on building things for new spaceships or new things on the moon or whatever, just hearing things at home that would require new infrastructure. Maybe you'd be able to build a really good nationwide rail system that would enable us to go from coast to coast real quickly, and powered by this cheap energy that it basically ends up being free. Okay, Andrea asks, what is nuclear fusion, though? Explain what it is. Okay, so 30,000 foot view of it. Okay, normally nuclear fission, our nuclear power plants run on nuclear fission. So what that means is you shoot a small particle at an atom, like uranium or plutonium or whatever, and that splits the atom into two. So by splitting the atom into two, you then it creates energy. But that energy that's created has waste. It has nuclear waste involved because it's radioactive. You're using these metals that are the ore that's radioactive, so it has radioactive waste to it. So it ends up being dirty. And it's also dangerous if you have meltdowns like we're all concerned about with Russia bombing the Ukrainian nuclear power plants, etc. Nuclear fusion is, what they did here is they took lots of lasers and they pushed two atoms just closer and closer together to fuse them together. And by fusing them together, it releases a crap ton of energy. And it's not radioactive. It's basically what the sun uses. Nuclear fusion is basically the fuel of the sun, but people are thinking, well, you have nuclear fusion, it's so hot, you can't have a sun here on the Earth, so how do we do it? So they've been trying to do things like cold fusion or other ways. They've been investigating fusion for almost as long as they've been having fission. But basically, the difference is fission, which is what we have now, is the splitting of atoms apart and creating energy that creates heat, and the heat, heats up the water and spins the turbines, but then you have the gunk afterwards, and then fusion is you're pushing the atoms together. And they say, again, I don't know the exact amounts, but like a glass of water has more power in it than like a bunch of coal. Like you get so much more out of a glass of water than you would a bunch of coal, and you just have to push them together. So, Elizabeth, they can now do this with magnets. Let's see, what happens in a meltdown? There is no meltdown with nuclear fusion. It's not radioactive. It's I guess it's I don't know how to best explain it. I mean, because when we think nuclear power, we're thinking the nuclear fission power, which is based off of radioactive material, which can allow meltdowns. Now, nuclear power plants today are much safer than the nuclear power plants of before, and I've been an advocate for making more nuclear power plants under the current technology, is simply because of the fact that we have better technology to deal with what happens if we were to potentially have a meltdown, to prevent the meltdown from happening. The problem is that people remember Chernobyl, people remember 3 Mile Island, people remember all of the threat that could potentially happen in the worst case scenario, and don't want it in their backyard. So no one's going to support a nuclear power plant in their backyard, and so you're going to have a hard time convincing somebody else to put a nuclear power plant in their backyard. But with nuclear fusion, you don't have that dangerous part of it. Say how O2 plus H equals H2O plus energy is how we flew to the moon. So they basically can get rid of nuclear energy, then no nuclear war. I mean, they still would have the remainder of the nuclear waste from other nuclear power plants that could potentially be dangerous if gotten in the wrong hands. There's also the current existing all set of nuclear warheads. I don't know if there would ever not be a threat of nuclear war, because even though we would be getting rid of fission as a function of energy creation, we'd still have the knowledge and the technology to be able to create those weapons. And well, there's the whole idea of the nuclear deterrent. Do we get rid of our nuclear weapons knowing that Russia has theirs? No, we don't. So fission fuses, fission splits or fissures. Nope, the waste is forever. We can't deal with the waste. Yeah, Elizabeth, E equals mc squared. Basically, that's the point. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. So the amount of mass, you split the mass, or you fuse the masses together, and you get m times c squared energy when they're fused together. So fusion is insanely hot, though. It would melt down its containment, but it wouldn't be a nuclear meltdown. Well, I mean, they're going to have to figure out a way to get it done. I mean, it's probably 30 years away at this point. But until this past week or so, or this year at least, I don't know exactly the date where it happened, but until this year, the idea of us creating a fusion reaction was science fiction-ish. Like, we knew it should be able to happen. We know that fusion takes place. We know it takes place in the sun. We knew that we know that it happens. We just didn't. Nobody was able to make it happen first. So once we made it happen, then we're like, we made it happen with a hydrogen bomb. I think the hydrogen bomb did have explosive energy because it was non-contained fusion reaction. But a controlled fusion reaction where we purposely are trying to just extract more energy from the energy that we put in is what we eventually got. And we were able to do it. So now that we are able to do it, we can now work on making it so it's duplicatable and sustainable and something that can just be used to create unlimited power, as I say. Combined hydrogen and oxygen is a pellet fuel cell, but that's not fusion though. Are Schrodinger's cats in the box? Yes. Well, there's the whole Schrodinger thing. It was funny. One time I explained the whole Schrodinger thing to my wife just on a whim. I was like, "This is what the Schrodinger's cat means, or whatever." And I explained it to her, and then we watched Big Bang Theory 2 days later, and they brought up Schrodinger's cat, and I was like, hey, now you get it. I told you what it means, and now you understand it. See, this is above my pay grade. I don't even know what trans fats or gluten is, but I think I like them. Yeah, Jeff. As to quote John Panette, I don't know what gluten is, but it's delicious. It's actually the wheat protein is what gluten is, because my wife has celiac, so she has to avoid gluten. Which sucks because many different places just don't care about making sure that the food is safe. So those places that do make safe food are the ones that we love the most. The universe we live in might have started as a tiny little orb of fused energy. Well, yeah, the Big Bang, potentially. We've had several fusion reactions so far, almost for a few seconds. It's the heat we don't know how to deal with yet. Yeah, I love John Panette too. I saw him in concert with my wife early on in our marriage, so maybe 2008, 2009-ish, I think. Might have been 2007, I don't know. He came to Mississippi, and I was hurting so hard, I was laughing so hard. He was just so funny. Like, one of the jokes he made was, I even knew where he was going, and I died laughing anyway, because he was like, I lost 100 pounds. He goes, I'll lose 100 pounds. And then people be like, wow, I can really see it in your face. He was like, how big was my face? And just dead, just dying laughing over John Panette. Free Willy! Anyway, so, yeah. R.I.P. John Panette. Wait, that's all that Dan can do. Also, what? Conjecture and speculation? Yeah, I mean, yeah, right now it's conjecture and speculation as to what will happen. I mean, I was trying to listen to, I saw Michio Kaku was on MSNBC, and he had kind of mentioned, that the ability to take what we did just now and expand it to something that's usable for our society, well, he said it would be about 30 years. So if Michio Kaku says it's about 30 years, I'm inclined to believe him. He's a very brilliant physicist, and he's a great writer too. I've read a couple of his books that him and Kip Thorne have written. If you really want to have a better understanding of like modern science, written in a way that's able to be grasped by lay people, check out Kip Thorne has a really big book. I forget the name of it off the top of my head. I'll have to share it. Maybe I'll share it next week. I'll share it in a thing, or maybe I'll take a quick break and I'll find the link and I'll put it in chat. Kip Thorne and Michio Kaku both have great books explaining how things work. I think Michio Kaku also he has a book called The Physics of Star Trek, kind of going into what would be needed to do what they do in Star Trek. And one of the things that's funny about that is the first thing that was asked in the book, well, what's the first mistake that they make in Star Trek? And they split the infinitive. They say to boldly go instead of to go boldly, which is not a science error, it's an English error. Some people say it's not an error, that it's technically grammatically correct, but a lot of people would say that you should say to go boldly, you shouldn't split the infinitive. Anyway, but one of the people, Michael Okuda, who was one of the technical directors for Star Trek The Next Generation, was asked one time, how do the Heisenberg compensators work? Well, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, for 30,000 point view, is that for very small things, you can't know, like, two things about them. Like, you can know certain things with certainty, but, like, if you know the location of it, you don't know it's like where it's traveling or what direction is or how fast it's going. If you know the direction it's going, you can't know the exact space it is. So there's uncertainty about these small atomic particles that you just can't know. And so in order to beam somebody from one place to the other, you need to be able to find all their particles and where they are. And so they created this plot device, which is the Heisenberg compensator, which basically compensates for the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. And when asked, how does the Heisenberg compensator work in Star Trek, the technical director, Michael Okuda, goes, very well, thank you, and then just leaves it be, because it's just a fiction. It's just something that's made up to be able to accomplish what they would want to do. So, Jeff, could electric engines work in space? I think ion engines could work in space. Wonder what Stephen Hawking would think about this nuclear. I think Stephen Hawking, was it The Theory of Everything? His book, I think he probably discusses that a bit. Kimchi, if you know the rules, you can break them to boldly go as bolder and cooler. Let's see. Kinky Streets, hello. Kimchi, Wes, we are on the same wavelength tonight. That's awesome. Yes, electric motors work in space. To have a post license, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Wes, hilarious. Schrodinger's a misnomer. The whole point is that the cat is dead and the quantum mechanics can only work on the micro scale, not the macro. The beginning starts with an absurd experiment. Well, yeah. Well, the absurd experiment is whether it's not the cat is dead or not because the cat is big. The point of the Schrodinger experiment. Okay, so you have a piece of uranium or some radioactive material in a box, and you also have that cat in the box, and the cat, either some poison will be released or some gun will be shot or something will happen where the cat dies when one atom of that nuclear material decays. Now, nuclear material has a half-life, so if the half-life is like 5 years, that's how long it takes half of the material to decay. So you have 5 pounds of material, you now have 2.5 pounds of material because it decayed. Roughly speaking, I may have gotten that a little bit wrong, but whatever. But while you can know what the half-life is, you can't predict when a particular atom in that is going to decay. So while half of it will decay in 5 years, you can't know whether or not any of it decayed immediately until you look at it. So it's not that whether or not the cat is, it's not an experiment based on a large cat being alive or dead. It's an experiment basically saying you can't know whether or not that an atom decayed until you make the observation. We're going super nerdy tonight here on Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right. Let's, I guess, do a reset. I guess Devontae Lewis is still in his meeting, which is cool. Show reset, support the show. Patreon.com/LiberalDan or Patreon.LiberalDan.com, or you can buy me a cider. Just go to the buymeacoffee.com/LiberalDanRadio, or go to LiberalDan.com, click the Buy Me a Cider link, and you can get there that way. You can Venmo me. If you don't want to do an upfront thing, just don't say it's a business. Say to doing it to friends, so it doesn't cost me money or whatever. Because you're not buying something, you're just donating. So just do it with friends and family or whatever. Again, share videos, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. We have 23 concurrent viewers, but only 16 likes, so you can make sure, if you haven't liked the video yet, please make sure to do so. Let's see. Yeah, 16 likes and 23 people. That's what we got. So, like away. Work the YouTube algorithms, because, we're trying to get this show off the ground, so to speak. And maybe that we have fusion, we can manage to do so. Who are the four itches? Right now, 18 and 22 now, so I don't know. They don't allow you to see who liked and who disliked, or who liked it and who's viewing, so you can't publicly shame. And then it might even be more than 22 viewers, more than 4 people who hasn't liked it, because it's possible somebody came in and left. So let's see. Abdominox, Schrodinger's cat was to point out that quantum experiments can't work in the macro while other scientists were trying to use it in the macro. He was pointing out that, let's see. Say how you kept me up. I had fun, Dan. I'm glad you had fun. I appreciate it. What is the scientist joke? So scientists went on vacation, or the nuclear physicists went on vacation, and they put a sign on the door that said, "Sorry, gone fishing." Anyway. We can't use up all the helium, though, as the fuel, because we need to be able to keep the helium so we can talk funny. Because that gag is always funny. So, let's go ahead and take a commercial break, so I can take a good sip of water. wet the whistle, so to speak, come back. We'll continue to talk nerd stuff, science, Twitter, all that other stuff, and maybe we'll have Devontae Lewis as well. We'll see. But again, about 2 minutes or so, come back. It's Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right.
Are you planning a trip to Disney soon? Do you want help avoiding spending mistakes and making the most of your vacation? Then check out Budgeteers.com, a new site devoted to helping you get the most mouse for your money. What kinds of tickets should you get? Is the dining plan a good deal for you? Should you stay on grounds or not? Should you buy park hoppers? Many other sites are filled with information about what other people like to do, but Budgeteers is geared to help you make the best decision for you. So check out Budgeteers.com or go to YouTube.com/Budgeteers and help make your trip the best it can be. Budgeteers.com is not a travel agency and it is not affiliated with the Disney Corporation or any of its holdings. In a world gone mad, one progressive will do a bad movie trailer guy impression to get you to listen to his show. There's only one thing that I like better than the Liberal Dan Radio Minicast. Alright, Bill, that's enough of that. On the Liberal Dan Radio Minicast, you will hear an honest discussion of the day's issues, with some personal bits in between. You might even hear what the other side has to say, sometimes even in their own voices. So become one of the Liberal Dan family, because family means no one gets left behind or forgotten. To hear those bad impressions and more, tune into the Liberal Dan Radio Minicast. Talk from the left, that's right. And I think to myself, what a wonderful show. Yeah. If you enjoy Liberal Dan Radio, there's many ways that you can support the show. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can like me on Facebook or follow me on Twitter or TikTok. And you can become a Liberal Dan Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you can get a shout out. Higher levels get the opportunity to vote on what I do next on the podcast, the Minicast, or on YouTube. You can even buy commercial advertising or sponsor bits. So go to patreon.liberaldan.com and support the show today.
Hey there, podcast listeners. This is Demonox, host of The World According to Nox. It's time for Season 2, where I take you on another trip through my world. The world of movies, video games, pop culture, and more. Relate them to the world around you. Don't forget to leave a question for Marscat, and find me on Twitter by the handle XDeminox. That's the letter X like X-Men, DEMINOX. Now enjoy the rest of your podcast.
And welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. To join the conversation, 914-803-4131. Jolie just gave the link on how to buy me a cider, or buy me a coffee, if you will, and also the Patreon link as well for as little as $3 a month. There is one OG Minicast listener left, even though I haven't done a Minicast recently, but y'all, as long as I don't do a Minicast, y'all get the shout-outs on the main show. Which is fine. And there's, I think, a few left of the OG regular listener at the $5 a month. And once the end of the year hits, I'm eliminating the excess OGs and just making it regular levels. So if you want to jump on those, just please make sure to do so. Because there's only so many OGs, I guess, that we can have. So trying to... My links here is being... I did share the link in the chat for... Oh, there it is. Did share a link in the chat for the Kip Thorne, one of the Kip Thorne books that I've read, that does a really good explanation of scientific topics for lay people. And you can also, here is this. This is a Michio Kaku book, but if you click on that link, and I guess anything you buy from Amazon will give me credit as well. So that's another way to support the show, is buy things from Amazon through my links. If you're planning on buying things through Amazon, buy things on Amazon through my links. So Kimchi, I don't like Patreon. Why don't you like Patreon? But there's also, I think you can also subscribe monthly on the Buy Me a Coffee as well, if you don't want to do that. Or you could just send me Venmo money every month. So, yeah, Wes, actually don't call. I probably shouldn't have announced the phone number tonight, because as soon as Devontae Lewis calls in, I'm so hoping his meeting will be over soon, which is fine. He's had a call, and he's a very, he's going to be a busy guy with his new position as Public Service Commissioner. So he's, that takes precedence, especially over the fact that there was a huge storm with lots of power loss and everything. So we are going to be getting a call from Devontae Lewis soon, so it might not be the best night for phone calls tonight, but save your phone calls for next week and we can chat then, for the 21st, for the show before Christmas. I'm hoping to have a different night before Christmas parody other than mine. I redid the War on Christmas one in my own voice today, because the last time I recorded it wasn't great. It wasn't on the best microphone, so I recorded it on this microphone, so I think it sounds a little better than the last time, and I'll re-upload that to YouTube as well. However, I'm hoping to have somebody else do it, and that'll be a surprise as to who gets it done. We'll see who gets it done. Let's see. Suzanne, hi Suzanne, thank you. Thank you for showing up. Appreciate you. Everybody's welcome as long as they behave, right? I did Drunk Darling once. West Webb, I had a flashback. So, what else? Trying to think. So, I talked about the fusion stuff pretty much all I wanted to, because that's my concern basically with the fusion, is that once it becomes feasible to do it on a grand scale, once it becomes feasible to be able to use nuclear fusion to provide power to the planet and to power things like, vehicles and spaceships and everything like that, and once that becomes a reality, conservatives are going to fight it, because they're not going to want to get rid of their fossil fuel. The fossil fuel industries are going to fight it, and the conservatives are going to fight it, and they're going to want to just not. They won't go away easily. They won't be smart and try and come up with other technologies they could invest in, because if the writing's on the wall that fusion is coming at some point, these companies are stupid if they don't plan ahead and don't plan to try and start investing in other types of technologies that would be suitable for the use of nuclear fusion, or maybe some other technology altogether. Start working on things so that your business can continue on, even if the original business purpose that you had was making energy that is no longer needed. So, and when nuclear fusion takes place and everyone is using that because it's cheap and freely available, then the demand for fossil fuels will go in the tank, and therefore the stocks for all of that will go in the tank. So in order to make sure that the stocks don't go in the tank, invest in other types of technologies that will enable you to continue to run your companies. It's as easy as that. Or we just get Star Trek and we get futuristic space socialism, and we move on to that part of the future. Elizabeth, Ukraine getting Patriot defense system. That's good. Of course, I'm so baffled by the conservatives used to think that Russia was the enemy and that Putin was horrible, and how dare Obama, some try and negotiate with Putin. And now the conservatives are like, well, why doesn't Biden negotiate with Putin? Well, because they're kissing Putin's ass, because Putin loves Trump and they love Trump, so therefore they love Putin. So, yeah. What else? I tweeted something else out today, which was just kind of a realization that I had where, sometimes I consider myself, I don't know if imposter syndrome is the right word for it, because a lot of times imposter syndrome is something like, I don't feel like I'm good enough to be where I'm doing, and I don't think that I'm valid enough to do what I'm doing, even if I'm doing a good job. Like, you're in a job, you're doing good work, but you don't feel like, you fit and you belong, therefore. But sometimes that's what imposter syndrome feels like. But sometimes I also feel like it's, sometimes there are a lot of people online who will share, like, this is what having ADHD is like. And I watch all these people post all these memes about what ADHD is like, and I'm like, that sounds familiar. It sounds like things I do. But I feel like I have imposter syndrome, because of the fact that even though I do all these things that people say that people with ADHD do, since I don't have a diagnosis, I don't feel like I'm comfortable enough saying I have ADHD, even if it's undiagnosed. And some people have come around and said, well, most people who are adults who have not diagnosed themselves, who have not been diagnosed as kids with ADHD, often are self-diagnosed examples of ADHD. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And of course, one of the things that they will say that people with ADHD will do is they'll have imposter syndrome. So again, that's another thing that, just adds onto the pile. But with the rise of anti-Semitism and the rise of, with Ye, spouting anti-Semitic stuff, Kyrie Irving spouting anti-Semitic stuff, Elon Musk, posting memes with Pepe the Frog that is an anti-Semitic thing or whatever. It's really starting to show how, Jewish people are really a marginalized group, or it should show that. But sometimes I'm uncomfortable saying that Jewish people are a marginalized group, especially when it comes to Jewish people that look like me. Ashkenazi Jews, basically European Jews and not Sephardic Jews from the Middle East. You have people that basically Jews that look white. I'm a man. I am white. Unless you're a Nazi who doesn't think that I'm white, cisgender. So all these things that I have going for me when it comes to privilege, but yet I still feel like uncomfortable, but I still have the knowledge and the fear in the back of my mind that that I could potentially be at risk anytime, because of the fact that there are a growing number of people who feel comfortable being vocal about their anti-Semitism and who feel like they can share it freely and are free because they have a president or a former president who had no problem backing the Nazis in Charlottesville, for example. And they're emboldened by him and Trump and the people like Trump and like the Madison Cawthorns of the world and the Marjorie Taylor Greens who goes and speak with what's his face that Kanye West was hanging out with on the Alex Jones show. These people are emboldened. These people feel like they're unstoppable, and now they have the backing of powerful people, so therefore they can do more. And it makes me feel like I'm a threat, and I've been feeling this way since 2016. And part of it was in 2016, I was raising my concerns over Trump and what he did and what he said, and how he had an anti-Semitic past even before he became president. And people were like gaslighting me and telling me, no, you're not right. No, this isn't happening. No, you're kidding yourself. You're being ridiculous, Dan. No, because I was saying, well, Trump is akin to a Nazi. Trump is following Hitler's playbook to a T. By saying things like fake news, which is lying press, which is Lügenpresse, which is what Hitler said. Hitler scapegoated an entire religion. Hitler scapegoated the Jews. Trump scapegoated Muslims. And people are like, but there's no camps. Donald Trump didn't make the camps. I'm like, well, I'm not saying that Donald Trump is 1945 Hitler. I'm saying Donald Trump is 1933 Hitler, where it started. And that's the thing, is like, whenever people question me, whenever people ask me, well, it's ridiculous, or say, well, we're not there yet. We don't have this situation happening yet. And I'm like, well, when am I supposed to speak up? Am I supposed to speak up when I see the warning sign? Or am I supposed to speak up when it's done? When they already implemented it? Like, to make a football analogy, if I'm a defensive lineman and I see that they're about to run the ball, do I warn the people, hey, they're about to run the ball, so we can set up and change and shift the defense in such a way that can defend the run? Or do I, if I say they're going to run the ball and all my teammates are like, you know what, they're not going to run the ball, they're going to pass. And so they play the pass, and I'm sitting there waiting for the run, and all of a sudden, well, there comes the run, and he runs right by. And then he's, halfway to the end zone, past everybody, and then the defense is now like, oh, well, maybe we should have stopped the run. Maybe we should have listened to you. That's how I feel. It's like, at what point are we going to say enough is enough? At one point, are we going to put our feet down and say, stop it, this is enough. We are putting an end to this bigotry, we're putting an end to this anti-Semitism, we are going to stand up and stop it right now, because if we wait too long, it will be too late, and people will be hurt and people will die. Because we've learned this in history, that's what happens when we're silent, when people do nothing, when people just appease. When you're Neville Chamberlain and you appease the Nazis, when you just, okay, well, you can take this much, when you're Candace Owens and say, Adolf Hitler would have been okay had he just wanted to make Germany great. If he wasn't a globalist, Hitler would have been fine just doing his activities within the borders of Germany. I'm like, great, so you're fine with it, the fact that he exterminated the Jews, as long as it was inside Germany and not outside Germany. That's what you're saying. And she's like, oh no, I didn't say that. Well, yes, you did, because you said Hitler would have been fine if he would have just made Germany great again. He didn't say he would have been fine if he would have just focused on making Germany great again without killing Jews. But then these people, that's not what to do. And then, with Trump too, it's like, well, it's not what he said. Well, maybe he said it, but he was joking. Well, maybe he wasn't joking, but it's never going to get done. So we have to stop it. We have to stand up and tell people, no, you listen to the people who are marginalized. You listen to the people who are giving you the warning signs. I said this way back when too. I made a similar football analogy. It's like, we have the playbook. We literally have Hitler's playbook in our hands, and we're looking at it, and we're seeing that they're about to pass the ball. Why are we defending the run? Because we're stupid, because we're thinking, oh, well, they're not going to do what they did. Of course they will, because it was proven to work up until a certain amount of time. So anyway, let's go ahead and scroll back through the chat and see what we can do. Suzanne, this is my only support groups. Everyone, a few others too. Crimson 66, Republicans love whatever benefits them, exactly. And even then, but that's not even true, because there are plenty of Republicans who love things that don't benefit them. A lot of the people who are Republicans who are on public assistance, who fight against public assistance, and because they fight against, higher taxes for the rich to pay for it, even though they're poor. Why? Because they hope that one day they're gonna be rich too, and if they hit that level, they don't want to be taxed a higher amount. So, it's just like the people who fought for the South who didn't own slaves. They thought at some point, that they might be well off enough to get a slave too, and they don't want to be prevented from having slaves because they thought having slaves was cool. That's why they fought the war. That's why they fought against the North. That's why they were traitors. Let's see. Kimchi, go to a doctor. Adderall makes a huge difference for me. Concentration and ability to prioritize. Reminded of a South Park joke. I don't know if I want to make it. I was doing some South Park imitations on the Twitch stream last night. So, another thing about ADHD, many normal people have some of the traits or moderate versions of the traits. Yeah, Alarasia, Nick Fuentes. Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, well, that's a lot of similar things with autism, with the autism spectrum. Like, a lot of people who are, the crazy anti-vax conspiracy theorists are like, well, we have more vaccines, and now we have more cases of autism. Autism is, more prevalent now than it was before or whatever because of all these vaccines. And no, it's not the case. It's not the case that autism is happening more often. It's the case that we are better at finding people who have autism. We are better at diagnosing autism. We are better at catching it and being able to make sure that people get assistance earlier on, because we see, oh, they have this is potentially autism. Let's put them into this system and see if we're able to help them and give them the whatever need they might need because of their autism diagnosis. So, but again, conservatives don't understand that sort of thing. They have hard times with that. See, Andrea, be right back. Benny needs me. I mean, I guess if anybody does need to go to Benny or just want to leave me open while going to Benny Loco, I understand that. That's fine. Kimchi, the sad fact is no one can tell you are Jewish by looking at you. They use your last name. Wait till the fascists get your DNA dropped. Yeah, I mean, the DNA, my DNA test, I've posted it on Twitter. I'm like 49% Jewish, 50% like Western European, which is my mom's side because she was adopted, and 1% Sardinia. Don't ask me where the Sardinia came from, but yeah, if they were able to get a hold of my DNA, they'd be like, oh, there's the Jew. But yeah, there's only one person who's ever looked at me and been like, yeah, he's Jewish. And I was like, really? You caught that? But yeah, I don't feel that I look Jewish at all. There's not that stereotypical look in and of itself. But yeah, but even with Zimmerman, like, there are lots of German Zimmermans that are not Jewish. So it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm Jewish. And I'm not practicing. I don't go to synagogue. Last time I was in synagogue was when an adult friend of mine had converted to Judaism, and she became bat mitzvah, and so she had her bat mitzvah. So I went to the synagogue to help her celebrate. And it's funny because I sat down in the chairs and in the rows and grabbed the Bible and the Chumash, and the prayers started, and it was like riding a bicycle for the most part. I remembered most of the prayers. I remembered what to do for most of the prayers, and the only difference was sometimes for some of the prayers, certain synagogues sing different tunes to the songs than other synagogues do. So kind of like riding a bike. Let's see. Alarasia, I've been scared since 2016. Yeah, absolutely. I've been scared since 2016 as well. But again, people gaslight. Oh, that's not. You're silly. Boom. Hold on. I just got scrolled again. Bill P, this is why I complain about walls. They are always constructed under the false assumptions to keep people out, but in the end, do they really keep people in? Right. Yeah. Like signs. Like the song Signs. And the sign said, everybody caught trespassing will be shot on sight. Anyway. Going to sign off. Bye for now. Oh, I'm sorry I didn't see you say goodbye, Larasia. Thank you for joining us. It scrolled on me again. I hate when it scrolls on me again. It keeps scrolling on me. 10,000 years later, we still ignore the FASD because mostly end up in jail. Got a shirt that says, I'm not a gynecologist. Got sent a shirt that says, I'm not a gynecologist, but I'll take a look. I saw a shirt on Facebook today. I'm not a gynecologist, but I know a C word when I see it. Although it doesn't say C word. It says the see you next Tuesday word. Hilarious. Chris Obama took a DNA test. Danish, Irish, Iberian, and West African. See, I tweeted it. I wanted to get Lizzo to retweet me because I tweeted my DNA results that had me like being opaque, so white I was opaque, or whatever, or translucent. I think maybe that was what I was translucent. And I said took a DNA test, found out I'm 0% that bitch. So, because that's how Caucasian I was. Let's see, there would be more Jews if the conversion process... I don't know if there would be more Jews if the conversion process were easier. I'm not sure if I agree with that. It's kind of like what Tom Lehrer says in National Brotherhood Week way back in the day. Is like, oh, the Protestants hate the Catholics, and the Catholics hate the Protestants, and the Hindus hate the Muslims, and everybody hates the Jews. But during National Brotherhood Week, National Brotherhood Week. National Everyone Smile at one anotherhood week. Be nice to people who are inferior to you. It's only for a week, so have no fear. Be grateful that it doesn't last all year. Anyway, sorry. I love Tom Lehrer. If you haven't watched Tom Lehrer, listen to Tom Lehrer. A lot. The This Is the Year That Was is, I guess, a little bit aged because it talks about some stuff from, like, I guess the 60s. So you might have to be more understanding of what was going on in 60s politics to get some of that stuff. But it's a great album, and Tom Lehrer is a national treasure, and he actually put his sheet music and lyrics into the public domain, so anybody can record them and sing them, and it's fine. Like, I did not break anybody's copyright by singing that a cappella, and if I could play an instrument, I'd be able to do it, and there would be no problem. I don't think I can use his recordings, because that would be a violation of somebody's copyright, whoever owns the recording or whatever. I used to like talking to the Hare Krishnas at the airports. I walked up to a evangelical on Bourbon Street one night, and I had the evangelical tell me that I was right about something political. I was like, that was amazing. I loved that. It was wonderful. I was basically like, hey, I have a good day. You told me I'm right about my religion. I'll see you later. My conversation is done with you at now. One thing I was going to bitch about today, one thing I was going to have a epic rant. I talked about it yesterday on my stream. Hold on. On my live stream for Twitch, I got a letter in the mail 2 days ago. See, for some long drawn out, hard to explain reason, I had to file by mail. I couldn't file electronically on my taxes this year, so I mailed in my paper tax forms like April 14th. Like, that's when they were postmarked or whatever. Maybe it was a little earlier. I don't know, but they were saying it would take up to 6 months for them to be processed. And I think 5 months later, they were processed. But they told me that I was not going to get the $3,300 that I was expecting. They told me that I was only going to get $300. And I was pissed off. I'm like, but this is not right. And so I called the number they told me to call. The person was no help on the phone, was absolutely rude. And I ended up having to mail them in my argument as to why they owe me more money. And 2 days ago, I got a letter in the mail saying, we're very sorry. We're going to need at least 60 more days to deal with this, to be able to process this and go through with it. I was like, are you fracking kidding me? 60 more days that I'm not going to have my own money? And so I was planning an epic rant about the IRS and about conservatives, and how I called in Jeff's show today, and I was like, y'all conservatives are complaining and bitching and moaning about the 87,000 IRS employees that they want to hire, and they're not all agents. Some of them might be agents, but they're not all agents. Some of them are needed to do, like, the back of the house stuff, and, like, processing tax forms. And guess what? Like, I was like, because y'all won't properly fund and y'all won't properly staff the IRS, I am now sitting here now 10 months after, 8 months? It was April to December. I'm now 8 months in, being told that I'm going to have to wait 10 months, potentially, to get my money back if they decide to actually give me my money back. Well, rant over. Because I got another letter in the mail today, 2 days later, saying, we are going to be adjusting the amount in your account based on what you initially had submitted. And I was like, oh, well, there's no check in here. What's going on? And then I immediately went to check my bank account, and I had the $3,000 I was owed, plus about $100 or so in change of money, of interest that they owe me because they didn't give me my money in time. So I got interest on the money. So I had this all big rant ready. I was probably going to be talking maybe about a half hour or more about the horribleness that is the IRS. And then I had it all ready to be ranting about it all show until Devontae Lewis came on. And then what happens? They decide that they're going to go ahead and give me money. So I guess I can't really complain about it because I now can't rant about it much. Although there is a bunch of ineptitude going on there. Why on earth did they decide to just not give me my $3,300 up front instead of, making me have to? If I didn't realize, if I didn't fight, and here's the thing. I guess I could rant about this a little bit because I filed, and I know what I'm doing mostly. I mean, I used H&R Block for some, but the H&R Block was going to charge me $100 to put one piece of paper on my taxes. So I was like, no, I had H&R Block do most of my taxes, and then I did the additional one piece of paper, and then added that to my tax forms, adjusted my 1040 form so it had the new information on it, and then submitted that, because I could do that no problem. And I wasn't going to pay an extra $100 to get this done. And the problem with paying the extra $100, because I almost did it, was not the fact that why should I have to pay $100 to get money back, to get just a little bit more money back. It seemed to be a wash. Like, if I would have paid the $100, maybe I would have gotten a little bit more than that back, so it might have been worth it, but not that much. But the problem was that I had to buy this whole service, and which required me to upload everything to their server so that they could have a professional look at everything when I only needed one thing looked at. So I think I might have to use H&R Block this one last time for this last year because of the 401k loan that I was dealing with. And that's the reason that the 401k loan that I took out from COVID to be able to help me survive whilst trying to find a new job. And then after that, I probably won't be using H&R Block again because it was a bait and switch. Because year one, they allowed me to do it for free. Year one, they included that information for the first year on the taxes. But year two, they made you buy a $100 product. I'm like, that's a bait and switch. If I would have known that you were going to make me pay this money, I would have went to somebody else. So I was not happy with H&R Block. But even so. So I file the taxes and I get my forms back. And what happens if I'm not as stubborn as I am? What happens if I'm not as adept at figuring out things? I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but like, I'm typically smart enough to figure things out. And what if I wasn't? What if I'm just somebody who was just accepted it and was just like, oh, I guess I was wrong. I'm sorry. I'll just sit here with only my $300 refund instead of my $3,300 refund. What can I do? How can I fight it? I don't know. And, well, guess what? That if I was that type of person, I'd be out $3,000 and I wouldn't know what to do to fix it. Fortunately, I knew what to do to fix it. But can you imagine? I can't imagine how many people have dealt with this problem. I can't imagine how many people submitted their taxes, were told that their taxes were incorrect and that they didn't get as much money as they thought they were getting, who just accepted it and moved on and just let the government have their money. I mean, it's terrible. A lot of times conservatives will argue on, we should have a more simplistic form of taxes. Sure, absolutely. Make a simplistic form of taxes. Make it progressive so that, because when you're richer, you have more stuff to deal with. Make sure you can deal with stuff like, dependents and stuff like that. And don't tax capital gains at a lower rate than you would tax other gains. All income should be treated the same. Simple as that. I'm all for making it simpler. I'm just not for making it simpler in a way that lets rich people get away with paying less money in taxes. Because that's ultimately what the conservatives want when they talk about simplifying the tax code. They just want to make it easier for rich people to get away with it. They don't want to be audited. That's why they don't want the 87,000 people being hired by the IRS, because they mislead the poorly educated or the undereducated, or the people that Trump loves. They mislead them into thinking that all these people are going to be coming after you and your $600 PayPal payments. If it's just friends and family, they're not coming after that. They're just coming after people who are using it for business. And if you're using it for business, you should be claiming it anyway. But they're making these people who are, worried that their grandma sending, I don't know if their grandma would send them a Venmo payment, but they're people sending a Venmo payment, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, they're going to come after me and my money, and therefore I can't support this. But that's not the reason but they think that one day they're going to be rich and famous again, and that somehow they're going to not want to be audited like the rich people are audited. They don't want to have to go through an audit when they become rich, even though the barriers to entry into wealthdom, if that's a word, is hard. It's a very high hurdle to go over. But they're led to believe, they're misled into thinking that somehow they're going to make it. They're going to make it, and they're going to be rich, and then they don't want to have to be taxed, the high amount of money that the rich people. So then let's lower the taxes so that when I become rich, I can pay less taxes too. What people tell me, oh, well, if you make a whole bunch of money, you're gonna get taxed more. I'm like, yeah, I look forward to being in the 50% tax bracket, because that means I'm making bank. That means I'll be making a crap ton of money, and I'll be able to live my life as I want to, because I'll be making a lot more money than I am now, based on the current tax rate that I have. Yes, please make sure that I'm in that tax bracket. I would love to be in that tax bracket. Make it happen. Make it so to speak. Let's see. Go way back. Paddywhack, would you want to know what I want for Christmas? What do you want for Christmas, Paddywhack? Let me know. Me? All I want for Christmas is you. Sorry. Let's see. Let's scroll and see what I'm missing. Yeah, when the chat flies by. I already saw that one, so I'm at the bottom, or at the top of what I've seen already. Let's scroll. I haven't been in the airport. Ain't been in the airport in years. No idea if they're still there. Oh, the Hare Krishnas. Yeah, I haven't seen a Hare Krishna in my local airports, but I might have saw one in 2019 when I went to Los Angeles. Kimchi, I think written records man are important, can be learned from haven't met this guy. Jeff Curry, I've been killed off a few times. Great fun. Jolie, a couple weeks after they announced the new IRS hires, my dad yelled at me over a tax bill he got, blamed it on my guy Biden, and I'm like, you're so dumb, it's not happened yet. Nice. So again, Paddywhack, what do I want for Christmas? We'll see. Well, I'll see what you want. Suzanne, I saw the medical doctors and nurses trying to bring him back to life. Very real, guys. Kimchi, Suzanne, if someone doesn't talk to you, screw them. Says more about them than you. None good. Kimchi, women writings and let's see. I told him it's not Biden's fault. You suck at math. LOL. Real BP, the IRS hires over a 10-year period starting in 2023 that will replace retirees and transfers. Yes, that's also true. H&R Block messed up my taxes. I owed near $6,000. You don't have people. Exactly. I always make sure to double and triple check. I always do the online one, but it's just the one particular thing that I needed to do with the 401k loans was the issue. Let's see. Kimchi, my dead friends and relatives and family's pet visit me in my dreams. I had, Suzanne, speaking of which, I did have a dream the other day where my grandmother was in my dream. My dead grandmother was in my dream the other day, and it was weird because I didn't get to talk to her like I would have liked to. She was explaining who the weirdos were in her house, because the dream was more about the weirdos in her house, but she was there. She didn't leave me with any words of wisdom or anything, but it was nice to be able to see her in my dream, I suppose. And it was before her mind started degrading a little bit, so I was able to at least talk to her a little bit, which was nice, as I guess it gave me the good memory. Lots of good memories of my grandmother. I'll have to tell the story again one time if we have time. Let's see. Free medical, free food needs. If you have money, spend it at 50%. Raise taxes 50%. Raise taxes by 50% or to 50%. These jackasses with rebel flags as curtains and trailer parks need lower taxes. Nice. I took our feral cat in. We did take in a feral cat as well one time. S'mores. Unfortunately, he had a feline leukemia and he wound up passing away after a couple of years, but we gave him a couple of years of a good life that he wouldn't have had because he was out on the street. And he was a very sweet cat. Our other cat didn't like him too much. But let's see. Really, what I would like is for family friends to have a great holiday, regardless of political views. I want Trump to be in jail. I want peace for the Ukrainian people. Heck yes, I agree with that. That is something that I think everybody should want. I would love for family friends to have a great holiday. I would love for Trump to be in jail, and I would love for peace for the Ukrainian people. Amen. Hallelujah. Praise whatever deity you want to praise. I respect all religions except for the ones who say I'm going to burn forever if I disbelieve theirs. Exactly. That's right. I mean, if you have to use a threat of eternal damnation to make you believe, that's not really belief, is it? Puppies next door to me are adorable. They're part of the birdies. Let's see. See how I was a grandpa guy, but I understand the gift of a dream. Yeah, I haven't. Shockingly, I haven't had. I felt really bad because I was a little sick, and I was also doing ride sharing at the time. When my grandmother passed away, it was a time where if I would have left to go out of town, I would have been giving up on a lot of potential money, and I was worried about my family. And so I felt really bad that I missed my grandmother's funeral. So when my grandfather died, I made sure as hell that I came up there and for the funeral and brought my family up to the funeral as well. And my boys, even though my boys are generally well behaved, everyone was surprised at just how well behaved they were in the services. They were amazingly good, like so very good during the services or whatever. I guess I can tell the story of my grandmother now. I think some of you may have heard this one already. My grandmother, I think, graduated college at 19. She spoke Spanish fluently. She was not a native Hispanic speaker by any means, but she took Spanish, and so she was always fluent in Spanish. That we have a video where my uncle took a video of her telling this story in English, and then she told the short story as well in Spanish. So right after college, it's like in the 40s. So she ends up getting a job because she speaks Spanish fluently for the War Department. And one of the thing that they had her doing is they were in like the censorship division or whatever, because they had letters that were being sent from the United States to Mexico. And so it was the responsibility of her and several other people, maybe one other person, to read the letters that were going to Mexico and making sure that nobody was sending Mexico any of our secrets. So she would, open up a letter, read it, verify that it was kosher, and then send it on its way. And then she would do the lather, rinse, repeat all over again. Until she got this one particular letter. And she saw the letter, and she hands it to her coworker. And she goes, I think you need to be the one who looks at this one. And she's like, why? Why can't you look at it? And she was like, because it's my letter that I wrote to my cousin in Mexico City, and I don't think it would be appropriate for me to look at my own letter and say that it was okay or not. So, my grandmother had integrity, because she could have very easily just looked through and been like, yeah, it's fine. But she had integrity, and she just passed it on to her coworker to have a look. But it's also just, what are the odds that she writes a letter and to Mexico City, and all of a sudden it comes back across her desk of all of the interpreters that they had interpreting the letters and trying to make sure that secrets weren't being sent outside the borders. So it's a great story. One of the things, like, I remember one time I was having to cook a meal for my Spanish class in high school, and we couldn't find the definition of what something is. We finally figured it out. It was laurel, and laurel are bay leaves. So, and we're looking at the store. I'm looking for laurel, looking for laurel, looking for laurel. All of a sudden, I see bay leaves, and I see in parentheses laurel. I'm like, oh, for frick's sake, really? So we were able to make this dish, and it was pretty good. It was a lot. We had a lot of food. So you say how, wow, I missed my grandfather's funeral by 3 days because I was in combat. He was a World War II vet. Yeah, my grandfather was not a World War II vet, but he did go to Germany afterwards. I think he started in 45 or maybe 46, and he did go into Germany afterwards to help with, I guess, the peacekeeping part of it. But yeah, it was very quick. Like my grandmother died, and then like he just kind of deteriorated at that point because he was always very healthy. He was like 97 and going on long walks. Like he was very much, into his health or whatever. But I think there was like a car accident that took place, and I think the car accident took place, and I think it just went downhill from there. And it was all kind of like, this is terrible. Well, here's the thing. My grandfather passed away while I was watching Endgame. So I'm watching Avengers, no, not Endgame. I'm watching Avengers Infinity War, right? So I'm at the movie theater. I already know that he's sick, but I have my phone turned off. And I go to check my phone to see if there's to check how many post-credit scenes there are before we leave. And the first thing I see is a text message from my dad saying that my grandfather had passed away. And the first thing that came to my horrible mind was, God damn it, Thanos, you got my grandfather with the snap. Because that's how Jewish people many times deal with sadness. They make jokes about it. That's how Jewish people made it through the Holocaust. That's how Jewish people deal with it. That's how Mel Brooks has often talked about how Jewish people use humor to deal with pain, and that's why he often will make fun of Nazis to take away the power, to take away the pain, that to try and hide it, feign or mask it or whatever. Try and use it as a way to just make it through the day, I suppose. Because if you can get a laugh out, you're maybe halfway there already. So that's the comment that I had in my head. Of course, then of course I get to the car and I start crying on the way home, because then it actually hit me what had happened. And yeah, I was not doing well with it. But then I was like, we're going up to Maryland. We're going up to the funeral. I need to go up there because I was very upset that I didn't go see the other one, and I'll be very upset with myself if I don't see this one. So, and then I made everybody cry when I gave my eulogy, because I was like, I really want to say something. I really have something that I want to say. I wrote it down. I gave it to my uncle. My uncle was like, yes, you should say this. And so I got up there, I spoke, and I made everybody cry. Let's see. Trucker John, I don't like religion. I have all the stupid rules and rituals and customs that one should always do. F that BS. Jeff Curry, I damn near turned Catholic just to check it out. Crimson, I have my faith. I don't need to go to church. My joke about, being, I'm not a practicing Jewish person. My joke is that I practiced enough as a kid. I don't need any practice anymore. I know how to do it. But I did go to Jewish day school from 1st grade to 8th grade. I took some classes after that in high school, after school. Even took some college classes during high school. Got some college credits for it, for just learning and understanding lots of things about my faith. So I'm pretty knowledgeable for somebody who's like not a rabbi. I think I've surprised several of my Jewish friends who I guess didn't know my history because I wasn't here when I was in elementary school and middle school and high school, and I started talking about all of this biblical stuff and all of the rules and everything like that, and they're like, "Wait, do you know all that?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I know all that. I've had lots of practice, lots of learning, and the learning did not go to waste. Even it's up there in my head, even if I'm not practicing it right now." Kimchi, never had a grandpa related or adopted, all died before I was born. It could be, I was a practicing Catholic, no longer practice. I perfected it. Of course, my wife is a lapsed Catholic as well, so her being a Catholic and my being a Jewish person, our kids are cashews. So, what else? And my situation is I actually knew both of my great grandmothers on my dad's side. They were young enough, or they were when I was old enough to know who they were. In reality, like, I forget when my grandmother Rose died. My grandmother's mother, my grandfather's mother, I think she died when I was 12, or 13, because I went to this sleepaway camp for 2 years, and the first year in sleepaway camp, it was my mom came up with my grandparents to visit, and then the next year it was supposed to be my dad and and those grandparents who came up to visit. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting in the bunk and I'm looking up the hill, waiting for my dad to come down the hill, expecting my dad to be late because, well, my dad's always late. And all of a sudden I look up and say, like, that looks like my mom, but it can't be my mom because my dad's coming. And I'm like, well, that looks like my grandparents, but it can't be my grandparents because my dad's coming. And then they get down the hill. I'm like, that's my mom and my grandparents. What the hell happened? And they're like, oh, your great grandmother died. I'm like, oh, okay. But I wasn't as close. I wasn't really close to my great grandparents, so it didn't affect me as much as it did when my grandparents died, obviously. But the other weird thing is because my mom was adopted, so those were my adoptive grandparents, I guess, that came with me. And my mom did her DNA test, got her genealogy, found a half brother, found her dad. Didn't find. She might have found family from her mom's side, but I think when she reached out to them, they had no interest in meeting. But she was able to meet her family, and she actually got to meet her biological dad and knew him for about a year or two before he passed away. And I always say hi, keyboard, nice. And so, what was it? So he was getting sick, and that is the part of my family that's very conservative. Like, I don't hardly know them, but they're Georgia through and through. They're not Atlanta, Georgia. They're like Milledgeville, Macon, Georgia. They're deep South Georgia. And I got to the point where my half uncle, I don't know if that's what you would call him, he blocked me on Facebook because we got in too many arguments because he was way too conservative. But my mom was going to go visit because I think he was getting sick, or he was sick, and she wanted to go visit him. And I told my wife, I was like, look, I want to go this weekend to Georgia. And because if I get to meet him, great. That'd be nice to be able to meet him. But I really had a feeling that he was going to pass away. And that weekend, I just had this feeling in my head that, like, this is going to be the weekend that he dies. And, it could just very well be that he was waiting for her to come see him before passing away, before allowing himself to let go. So we spent the day with my stepdad and my kids because they didn't want to, like, put my kids, I guess, through the boring day of spending time at, the house where we're just sitting around waiting for the inevitable to happen. And we were about ready to go to the house, and we were checking on my mom's dogs at the hotel. We're on the way from driving from the hotel to the house when he passed away. So I never got to meet him. I saw the back of his head. We never got to meet him, but at least I was able to be there for my mom, who was, now going through a loss of losing another father yet again, because she already had to deal with the death of her adopted father. Now she had to deal with the death of a new father as well, after having no father for years, and at least no living father, I should say. So I was glad to be able to be there for her. And be able to provide that support for her. But yeah, it was just, I think what happened was, and this is, I don't know if you'll cry at this one or not, but I think what my mom said was, she was sitting there, she was talking with him, and she basically was seeing how much he was suffering, and she basically was like, it's okay, you can let go now. And I think 5 minutes later is when he passed, because I think he allowed himself to relax and just let himself go. And so at least she was able to be there for him. And what's sad is that some of the people in that family, in that side of the family, don't treat her as if she's really family, simply because of the fact that she was never around, because nobody knew who she was until she popped up with the DNA test, even though she is blood related. On the other side of the coin, the adopted family, one of my aunts, she's really a cousin, but when my grandmother passed away, made a big stink over the fact that she felt that she was owed my grandmother. She should have my grandmother's photo books. Now, my grandmother's photo books and her sister's photo books, which my grandmother's sister was this woman's mother. So the photo books almost exactly the same. It was almost duplicate pictures. Like if you got to both books, you would have like an 80% intersection of same pictures. And my mom was more than happy to scan in the pictures that she didn't have to make sure that she had copies of them. But my aunt was like, no, I want them. And she made a big stink out of it. And it was really disgusting. And so you went from, me feeling like I was part of this family to really feeling like, did they really not feel that we were part of that family because we weren't blood related? And that pissed me off. So I haven't talked to anybody on that side of the family for a very long time either. Because I didn't like the way they treated her. And at the end of the day, them treating her like that was basically them also treating me like that too. So I don't know. Maybe someday there'll be a reconciliation. I don't know. So who knows? It's hard because I really like my cousins, but like my cousin sent me an invitation. My oldest cousin sent me an invitation to her wedding back in 2006, I think it was, and it was me and a guest, and my mom was not invited. So my joke was, well, I'm allowed to bring a guest, so how about you be my guest, Mom? And we laughed about it, but I was like, that would probably not be the best decision to make. And we just decided to go against it. And I didn't feel like I could afford a plane trip out to California at the time anyway. So, yeah. That's a whole story about my family. Or some of my family, at least. Let's see. Ken, we live next door to that grandmother. I guess I need to scroll back to catch back up on that. Yeah, for a while, I lived with my maternal grandparents, the adoptive ones. We lived together after my mom got divorced, and my mom got a apartment, and then my grandparents got an apartment that was kind of like one block over in a different apartment building, but I could be done with school and I could go hang out with them if I wanted to go hang out with them. And then we eventually just all moved into a house together until Mom got finished up with her school and was able to get back on her feet and have her own position and then have her own apartment, to which at that point they moved out to California. So to go be closer to her relatives. Let's see. Laughing at the cashews. Let's see. I have fond memories of every Sunday going to my great grandma's house. All cousins there putting me up to whatever got in trouble. My grandmother once told me I would get pregnant if I wore shorts outside. True story. Nice. I don't think that's how science works, but then again, grandmothers might not be the best of people who understand science. They were alive. They didn't even have, indoor plumbing, right? My aunt blocked me on Facebook around 2016. She lived in the upstairs apartment of my grandmother's 3-flat. Nice. By the way, we live next to, let's see, but my mom was all about the castor oil and camphorphenique. Nice. Crimson and I was adopted too, so when I did my DNA test, the first cousin came up. Her and I are good friends now. I've met my biological dad and have a relationship with him now. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, freaking family. I guess the one thing that I like that was great about my dad's side, my grandparents on my dad's side, is they were always very progressive. They knew Joe Biden. They worked on his first campaign. They always talked about how wonderful of a person he was. My mom's adoptive parents, I mean, they were Democrats, but they also voted for Reagan in '84, and my mom was very pissed off that they voted for Reagan in '84, simply because of the fact that, my grandfather was from Russia and was not a fan of Russia, and as such wanted somebody who was going to stand up to Russia, as if, Mondale wouldn't have stood up to Russia. But, wait, hold on. I'm looking for the darn, there it is.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. So I'd scrolled too far down for that one, I suppose. Let's see, modern day Republican grandmas push ivermectin. Yeah. Let's see. Real bit makes me wonder if people are stupid enough to believe that a parasite and a virus are the same thing. Well, just as Hal says, if you have COVID and you take ivermectin and you feel better, that just means you also had worms, and you got cured of the worms. Mazel tov. So, it's 9:45 already. I may just have to reschedule Devontae Lewis for next week or something, because I'm starting to get a little tired. I guess I could continue to blather on about random things altogether. I wasn't prepared to talk about too much of stuff today, because I was ready to talk about stuff with Devontae Lewis, and I could give a brief 30,000 point overview of what happened. If you remember the last podcast that Devontae Lewis called into, the Louisiana Democratic Party had set up, they changed the endorsement process so that it would be harder for Gary Chambers Jr. and Devontae Lewis to get endorsed. They thought. Well, Gary Chambers Jr. and Devontae Lewis got all their ducks in a row and were able to get what they needed to get done in order to get the endorsement. Well, the head of the Louisiana Democratic Party, Kenny Bernhardt, did not like that one bit. So they had a vote to suspend the rules and just endorse everybody, which was what they were not supposed to do. But that's what they did. So they endorsed everybody instead of endorsing the people who did the work to get the endorsements. Now, in Louisiana, it's an open primary system, so therefore, if you have multiple people trying to force a runoff, maybe that could have worked to the benefit of Gary Chambers, and maybe Gary Chambers should have targeted a certain amount of people, and Mixon should have targeted other people, and maybe tried to get enough people to get and force a runoff. But I guess that's not what happened, because Kennedy got more than enough votes to win in the first. But Devontae Lewis was able to force a runoff with his co-endorsed candidate. So what happened? The Louisiana Democratic Party spent money on his opponent, to supporting his opponent. And they also donated money to Entergy, who's the energy company in Louisiana. And they sent the money to Entergy's PAC. And Entergy was supporting Boissier instead of Lewis. Which made me think, well, this money is probably going to Entergy to also help support Boissier instead of Lewis. So you have two co-endorsed candidates going up against each other in a runoff, and the Louisiana Democratic Party is spending money to put one over the other. That just goes to show you how horrible the Louisiana Democratic Party is at this point. Like, I would love to be able to run to get in there and start trying to fix stuff in it, but again, I'm not that good at running, and the person who's in my seat, who was in my seat at the time, was very popular, I guess, and there was no way that I would be beating him. But we do need a change in the Louisiana Democratic Party. I just don't have the funds to fund that sort of thing. So let's see. Religion and politics destroyed my family. Trumpism just finished what religion started in the 60s. Jeff Gray, my dad fell out of a tree as a kid. She said, take a poop and chemofonique. He drank it. Nice. Patty back, I'm tired too. Thanks for the show. Say hi, self one, self. Step two, family. Step three, faith. Step four, government. Isn't it funny? Americans read shit upside down, reverse it, and think about it. Nice. That's true. Oh my God, take a poop. Nice. Yeah. Anyway, so your Bill P's going to bed. I think it's about time. I'm just going to send Devontae Lewis a message and say, look, I decided to end the show today. We can reschedule for next week. I have no problem with that. I understand you got stuff to do dealing with the storms. Nobody was expecting that, I guess, to be that bad. It was getting worse. Like, the guy on the news was telling people, look, you're not going to see this coming. There's very low visibility, and it's coming at you now, so go get shelter. And it was coming, and it was like, here it is. It has not weakened. You need to be safe. Go. So, anyway, Jolie sharing the links. Liberal Dan Radio, patreon.liberaldan.com or patreon.com/liberaldan to support the show month to month. Or you can also support the show month to month on buymeacoffee.com/liberaldanradio, or just click the Buy Me a Cider button at liberaldan.com, or you can Venmo me as well. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't, share videos, and encourage your friends to subscribe as well, so we can try and get to the 1,000 subscriber mark at some point, so then I'll be able to whatchamacallit, get some monetization on the channel too, which would be cool. Anyway, this is the end of this week's episode of Liberal Dan Radio Talk from the Left. That's right. I will be on nerdydan.com, on twitch.tv tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Central. If you want to join me there, we can hang out and have fun. We had a great time last night again with Ken, and I think Wes showed up for a little bit. I had Jolie, Aaron, Andrea as well. If I pop up, have other lives, other things to do, make sure to follow my Twitter account, Liberal Dan Radio on Twitter. I have Mastodon as well. I haven't gotten used to using that yet. I'll eventually do that as well. But unless you join me tomorrow, until next week, this is Dan Zimmerman with Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right.